everyone, welcome to the OklaRoots YouTube channel. In today's tutorial, we're not going over just one item. No. We're going to go over 3 different projects today because today's tutorial pairs up with the Sally Tomato OklaRoots project box for August. And you guys, this is such a good one. So, I know in my first video when I talked about the project box, I kept saying box. And the items did come in an envelope because of the large size of the fabric cuts. However, this month, we have a box. We've got an official OklaRoots Sally Tomato box. This is so cute. I was so excited when I got it in the mail. I hope you guys are too. I hope you guys love it. Make sure you're signed up in the Sally Tomato Facebook group if you are on Facebook, because I think we're going to try to have some fun little things, figuring out ways to repurpose this box because it is too cute to throw away. So even if you are not participating in the monthly subscription box, that's totally fine. You will have access to all the patterns. The one thing that the box really gives you, though, is all the material for these projects. And this month, it's really great because the material is all pre-cut for you, meaning all you have to do is sew it together. So like I said, there are 3 projects. Let's go through them one by one. First, we have the Lucky Penny wallet. And on this one, we're going to be doing a little, what is this, flip lock closure? Boop. Flip it open. How cute is that? You can see I put my bag tag on the back. The bag tags are not included in the box, but if you want to get them, you guys know I'll have a link down below for my favorite shop, the Heartwood and Hide. And then we just open this up. Woohoo! We have this beautiful floral cork on the inside. We have card slot pockets down here. We have another like little ID pocket. That's what I consider it here. We're doing a cash pocket at the top, and then we're including a zipper. This is our little hack for today. We're going to include a zipper pocket on the bottom for like a change pocket, and we're going to close this off. So we do have like 2 separate pockets here. So this pattern comes together so fast, so easy. Everything I'm showing you right here, this is all included in the box if you signed up. If you did get this and you're like, you know what, I love the interior, but I think I want to use something else for the exterior, this is a very easy pattern for you to just bing, 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 get what you need, change it out. So much fun. How cute is that? The second item we'll be going over today is actually one we've done on the channel before. This is the Lucky $2 wallet. This is a really fun, scrappy project. But again, in the box, this is all the material that is included, and it's all pre-cut for you. You can see we have this beautiful vinyl. We have this beautiful cork. It has a bill pocket on the top, a small zip pocket, a few slip pockets, card slot pockets. I just love this. My mom actually uses this wallet every single time we travel. This is her travel wallet. She absolutely loves it. So we're going to be doing this one today. And then for the third project, this is just a really fun scrap buster. This is a little key fob cord keeper. It is so cute. Here, let me show you. I've made another one here. But look at this. This is one of those like USB phone cords. So if I have like a battery pack, so when I'm traveling, I always travel with a battery pack because I use my phone a lot and it dies. This is just easy for me to like clip into my purse, and I can just put this under the battery pack, put this into the phone. I can extend this. It is such a cute little pattern. So in today's tutorial, we'll be going over this key fob hardware, which is included in the box. However, you could definitely use a swivel hook here, just a keychain. You can use a lot of different options. So this is a perfect scrap project. Scrap pieces of zipper. You can see it's just got one little thing here. I think this would actually be really fun for teachers because they could keep a chapstick in there. They can keep some cash in there. And you know, teachers, they always have like a set of keys. They're always walking around with a bunch of keys jingling around. This will just be something to add to it that just, you know, it's bigger and it can hold what they need when they're taking the kids after recess. I don't know. I thought it was adorable. So these are the 3 items we will be going through in the tutorial today. I will be walking you through each one of them. I will have timestamps for each one of these. So if you're only interested in one, just make sure you click the timestamp down below. If you're new to the OklaRoots YouTube channel, please consider clicking subscribe down below. If at any point you like this video, please give it a like. Any questions, comments, anything at all, leave them down in the comment section. This month is really fun. I feel like this is a great last minute gift. Kids back to school, you need a teacher gift. You just need to get your sojo back. You know, you've been going all summer, having a great time, and you're like, okay, now it's time to calm down and do some sewing, but I just want to do something fast and satisfying. These are very quick and very satisfying and extremely useful, not just for you, but as gifts to other people. I did want to mention that, yes, we do have this beautiful box for the subscription. However, this might not be a box we use every single month. It's really going to depend on the size of cuts of material. So as long as the cuts are small enough for us to be able to put in this box without bending and folding them, then we will use it. However, there are months coming up very soon where we have quite a bit of material and it's on the bigger side, and we might not be able to use the box for that upcoming month. Hint, hint. All right, guys, let's get started. So let's first start with the penny wallet. The penny wallet is very scrap friendly, very quick and easy. If you receive the August kit, this is what you're going to have for the Lucky Penny wallet. We have the exterior cut, the interior cut, our card slot pockets, and then like our little card slot pocket. You're going to have a little turn lock, as well as a scrap piece of material that's going to go with the turn lock. Then you also have the strap option. So I wanted to make sure if you weren't comfortable using the hardware of the turn lock, you still had a beautiful strap option. I'm not going to be showing you the strap option today. You're also going to have a zipper that goes with this. I love a zipper addition on this bottom zipper or the top, whichever window you want to do. I am going to be showing you how to install it on the bottom though, but this is completely optional. If you want, you can just leave this to the side and use it in another project. The nice thing about this wallet, it is very scrappy friendly. So if you want to switch up any of these things, please feel free to do that. I was trying really hard to pick colors that work really well together as a finished item, but if you wanted to switch these out for maybe some like hot pink or purple pockets, go ahead and do that. Save this for another wallet. You have a lot of fun options here. So here's most of the other stuff I'll be using today. Lots of clips, also double-sided wash away tape. Sometimes we use a double-sided 1/4-inch leather tape. I would not suggest the leather tape. This is very easy to sew over. This is easy to pull out of seams. I would suggest the wash-away tape for this. The thread I'll be using today on the top is a Tex 35 weight thread. I love variegated thread, especially on a solid exterior, because I feel like it's more forgiving if my lines aren't perfectly straight. For the bobbin, I'm going to be using a light gray thread. This is just Gutermann thread from Joann's. You want something that's going to look nice or perhaps hidden for the interior side, because we're going to be sewing a lot from the exterior side and we're not going to see our stitches on the bottom so much. However, when you're using the wallet, you will see these stitches. So I like to choose a light gray color, especially for the lining color that we're using today, because I find it just hides a little bit better. It looks nice without being distracting. And then the needle I'm using today is a Microtex 8012 needle. I do have one of my bag tags that I'll be adding to the wallet. A stiletto is going to just help keep everything in place, go slowly while you're working. Marking tools, an air erasing marking tool, and a chalk marking tool are going to be great considering we're using cork and faux leather vinyl today. For installation of the turn lock, you are going to want some sort of tiny screwdriver set. These are usually like eyeglass or jewelry screwdriver sets, but this will help you with installing the hardware. A lighter is going to help clean up any little tails we have, since we're doing mostly all top stitching today. Every stitch we make is going to be seen in the end, so we want to make sure all of the little end bits of those stitches look nice, so we're going to use a lighter for that. As always, I have my 1" by 6" ruler. I do also suggest you have some sort of a strong glue for the installation of the turn lock. I'll be using the Beacon 3-in-1 glue, but you could also use like an E6000 epoxy, just something to help with those screws to make sure they don't come out. I'll show you when we get there. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is just some prep steps. Like I said, all of this is going to be seen in the end. We have a lot of raw edges. If you opted for the kit, everything is pre-cut for you, which is fantastic because it takes a while to cut these out. So all you have to do is sew it together. It's just so awesome. So what we're going to do is we're going to top stitch along all these bits to give them a nice look. So we're going to go to the sewing machine and I'm going to top stitch along this top window up here at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. I'm going to save the bottom window because I will be installing a zipper there. So I'm not going to top stitch here just yet. We'll do that when we put the zipper in. So I'm going to do the top window 1/8 of an inch all the way around it. And then on the top edge of this bottom pocket, 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. On the top edge of these two card slot pockets, again, 1/8 of an inch top stitching. And then on the top edge of this little tiny pocket, 1/8 of an inch. I do back stitch at the beginning and end of these top stitchings because I do find that the thread can unravel pretty quickly. So I just do 1 stitch forward, 1 stitch back, and then continue on and do the same thing at the end. Okay, so once you have these top stitched, you might notice like on these pieces here at the beginning and the end, you have these little bits of a pigtail. They're like little tiny spikes that stick out. They're just the ends of the thread. And what I like to do with those, because if you try to cut it short, then it just kind of pokes out another end. It can be kind of a mess. So what I do is I just burn those down real quickly with a lighter, and it seals them in. I don't have to worry about them unraveling, and it gives it a really nice professional finish. No little bits of thread hanging off anywhere. So I just quickly go through on the edges of all these. I'm not burning my material. I'm just leaving it there for a tiny moment just to suck in those threads. Okay, there we go. So I'm gonna put my pockets to the side, and now let's install the zipper. So I'm using a number 5 zipper here. You can definitely use a number 3 zipper. A number 3 zipper means the coils are just gonna be a little bit skinnier, which will give it a nice fit because this is a fold line right here. When the wallet folds, it's going to fold on our zipper. I do like number 5 zippers though. So I'm using a number 5 zipper, and I would suggest cutting it 9 inches or longer. 9 inches is longer than it needs to be, but that's exactly how I like it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna lay my zipper right side up. I'm gonna grab some double-sided tape, and I'm going to tape right along the very, very edge of both sides of my zipper tape. All right, so I like to do these one at a time. So when my zipper is closed, I'm gonna have it going towards the left. That's just personal preference. So my zipper, when closing, goes towards the left. I'm gonna take the paper off the top edge of my zipper tape, and then I'm gonna grab my interior piece here, and I'm just gonna center it over that zipper. And what I'm trying to do is just make sure my teeth are centered in that window. There we go. And once I'm happy with that, I'll just push down the top edge, and then make sure your zipper pull is inside the window and you pull it out if it's tucked under, and lift up the bottom bit here. Remove the paper from the tape, and then just fold this back down right over that. Perfect. So now all we have to do is top stitch around this window, just like we did on the top window, at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. I would suggest using a zipper foot here, or else your presser foot might kind of make you get some wavy, weird stitches. So a zipper foot is going to be helpful, 1/8 of an inch around this entire rectangle, and that's just going to sew the zipper into place. All right, there we go. Now, the trickiest part about this is making sure you trim down the zipper, but not too much. We have a very small window over here, so what you want to do is just kind of pull the material back from the zipper, and we want to trim down the zipper tape so that it doesn't get eaten in the seam in the end. If it does, that's fine, but we don't want to trim the zipper tape so close to the stitching that the zipper tape starts to unravel and comes out. So what I'm going to do is just kind of pull this back, and I'm just going to trim it down about halfway between there. There we go. So if I flip this over, let's see, how much space do we have here? There's about an 1/8 of an inch there, which is perfect. And then if you really want to make sure you don't have to worry about the zipper tape ever unraveling, you're going to pull your lining material down so just the zipper tape is sticking out. Grab that lighter again, and you're going to burn down the edges of your zipper tape, okay? The zipper tape is plastic pretty much. So you're going to just burn down all those little plastic threads so they melt and they seal themselves in. And that way, as you're using this over months, years, the threads don't unravel and come out. So I'm gonna do the same thing over here. I'm just gonna gently pull this back and trim down the zipper tape. There we go. And then I'm going to seal these. There we go. Telling you, a lighter is a great sewing tool. All right, so there is my little zipper pocket, easy peasy. So now that we have the interior pieces prepped, let's put those to the side and prep the exterior. So for the exterior, before we get started, we want to install part of our turn lock and also our bag tag if we have one. Let's start with the turn lock. We are going to install the male end first. So the male end is this one here, the bottom part. I kind of, look at that, isn't that fun? Actually, it's not a turn lock, is it? It's a flip lock. Calling it the wrong thing the whole time. So you're gonna need the pokey part and then also the washer that goes with it. Leave this part to the side, we'll do that in the end. So you always wanna just take your male end and figure out where on the washer these prongs are going to fit best. Okay, so when I install this with my washer, the slits that it goes into are the very far right slit and then the third from the right. So you see it goes like this. You want it to kind of go in the center slits, but it doesn't. So it goes off to the side like that. So we'll take our exterior panel and lay it wrong side up. You're gonna wanna find the midpoint on the bottom edge. I know a lot of times when we do midpoints, we'll cut a little slit. Don't do that today. We don't have any seams that are gonna be inside today, so no cutting midpoint marks. Instead, what we're gonna do is we're just gonna fold it in half along that bottom straight edge. then give it a little pinch. And then I'm gonna grab my chalk marker for this. You could also use a vinyl marker. So now using this midpoint line, we wanna measure up 1 5/8 inch from this center mark. So I measured 1 5/8 inch up from the bottom center mark. And then I also drew a little vertical line here so I know where the midpoint is. So I drew a horizontal line and a vertical line so that way I know exactly where the middle is here and how to keep it straight. Now we're going to take the washer and we're going to line up the washer so that it is on that horizontal line so we know our washer is straight, and also so that the washer is centered. So remember, the center of my washer is going to be the midpoint between the first and the third slits, which is a little tricky. So once I have that centered, I'm just going to mark in the slits, the first slit and the third slit. There we go. I forgot to mention a seam ripper in the beginning, but you should have a seam ripper. So we're going to take the seam ripper and we're going to just rip very gently along those slits that we marked, only as long as the slits are. It's better for these little rips that you're making to be on the smaller side rather than on the larger side. There we go. So I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to take my turn lock, or flip lock in this case, and I'm going to insert it into those slits. There we go. Look how cute that is. That's adorable. So I'll flip it over. Now we're going to take our little piece of material here and we're going to use this for 2 pieces. I'm going to grab the washer and I'm going to kind of place it over here, and I want to cut off a scrap of my scrap that's just a bit bigger than the washer. But don't get too crazy with cutting all this, okay? You're going to need more of this. So I'm going to cut off just enough like that. And then I'm going to mark the same slit placement, first and third. And then I'm going to use my seam ripper. Carefully do that. What this is just a piece of scrap that helps add some bulk and stability to this turn lock. Because we don't want to just install the turn lock to this vinyl, and then as we're using it and pulling on it, eventually it's going to start ripping the vinyl. So the more material we can get here, the thicker we can beef this up, the better it'll be. So I have this, I have those slits already cut, and I'm just going to insert those over the prongs. So now I have my flip lock on the front, on the back, and then I have the vinyl, then I have some scraps, and then I'm going to take my washer and I'm going to push the prongs down and out away from each other. There we go. So if you need to make any micro adjustments here, you can kind of twist this to make sure it looks straight. That's straight enough for me. Flip this over. There we go. Okay, so now what we want to do, because we don't have like a lining, this is going to be exposed to whatever we put inside of our pockets. We want to cover up the back of these prongs with the remaining piece of scrap, like that. So what we're going to do is we're pretty much going to just plop this on, stitch it in place, and then we're going to trim it down. So this is how I do it. First, let's flip over and look at the front of this. Since this is so dark, I'm going to use a vinyl marking tool, but again, you can use whatever you want here. So what I'm going to do, you can do this however is easiest for you, but I'm going to measure 1 inch to the left and then 1 inch to the right of the flip lock. And when I'm doing this, I'm using my small ruler and I'm lining up one of the grid marks on my ruler with the straight edge on the bottom so I know this is straight. Again, a marking tool that's going to easily erase is going to be key here. I'm just going to mark up like that. I'm going to go on the other side and mark 1 inch away from the other side. Here we go. And now I'm going to mark 1/2 inch above and below my turn lock. So to do that, I pretty much just line up my ruler on top of my lock, make sure it's straight, and then mark 1/2 inch above. Do this on both sides. There we go. And then I can use my ruler to just connect those 2 marks. And I know you're like, why are you doing this? I just want this to be a really neat rectangle. I don't want this to look sloppy on my wallet. So I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom. So I'm just going to line this up with the bottom of my flip lock. And I'm using the lines on the side to help make sure it's all straight. And then I'm going to mark 1/2 inch down on one side. Come over here, mark 1/2 inch down on this side. And then just connect them. Okay, there we go. So now I have my rectangle and I'm just going to sew over this line. So let's flip this over and let's take your scrap of cork, vinyl, whatever you want to use here. And you just want to kind of flip it around and make sure it's completely covering that rectangle. I'm going to grab the washi tape from the first box to help put this in place. And just take your time here to make sure it's completely covering this rectangle on the front. If you're using a vinyl marking pen, it's getting messy. It's okay, we'll be able to clean that up. All right, I just want this to stay in place. There we go. So now I'm gonna go to the sewing machine and I'm just gonna top stitch right around my lines for this rectangle. So not the bits that go off the rectangle, just this inner rectangle. I'm just gonna top stitch right over these lines and then we'll clean up all the pen marks. All right, moment of truth. Let's flip this over and see if we caught it all. Looks like we did. If you're a little worried about the size of this scrap and that you're not gonna catch it all the way on the left or right, just use whatever scrap you have at home, any sort of cork or vinyl. Use anything like that and cover this up, okay? You can use a bigger piece than this. So now what I'm gonna do is just trim this down a little bit. So I'm pulling the vinyl away. I don't wanna accidentally cut my exterior after all that work. And I'm just gonna kind of trim down the edges just to make it look a little neater. So on the bottom I have a little extra. On the left and right I have just enough material, so that's good. But down here I can trim this up just a bit. And there we go. Now it looks nice. Is this something you're gonna see? No, but it looks very nice. So let's clean up our pen marks. All I have is a rag that's wet and I can just go over my vinyl. And this works great. So I'll have a link for this vinyl marking tool down below. I highly recommend it. It works really, really well on all these vinyls, especially on a dark color like this. But use whatever you're comfortable with as long as you can remove the marks. Beautiful. Okay, so now we're gonna do the bag tag. You can put the bag tag wherever you want. A cute option if you have a big enough one. Well, that's not big enough. But you can put it on the pockets, you can put it on the lining, you can put it on the flap, you can put it wherever you, actually don't put it on the flap. We're gonna have a turn log there. Don't do it there. I'm gonna show you where I like to put it. I like to put it on the back of the wallet. So I'm gonna find the midpoint on my top rounded edge here by just folding it in half. Again, no cutting. Just gonna fold it, and I'll grab my vinyl marking pen and just mark the midpoint. And then I'm going to measure down 4 inches. And what I like to do is mark a horizontal line and then also the middle. So the 1/2 inch mark, the midpoint. There we go. And my bag tag is going to line up right underneath that and centered. So I'm gonna grab some double-sided tape to hold it in place. Put that on the back of my tag. All right, now I'm just gonna top stitch around all 4 edges of my tag at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, so let's just give this a little test run real quick. It'll end up folding like this, folding down, bag tag on. Okay, this is looking great. Okay, so now all we have to do is sew it together. So let's start with these pockets over here. I suggest you always kind of lay out your pockets before you stitch them down, because I have a tendency to stitch them down one at a time, and then let's see, I put them all together, and then by the time I stitch this one down, I have a space here. I don't want that space there. The pattern is laid out so that these pockets do not overlap. That's going to help prevent bulk. So you can see when you lay your first pocket here, it'll go like that. And then when you do your second pocket, it'll go over the first pocket, but the sides will line up just right underneath it. So they're touching, they're smushed together, but they're not overlapping one another. I do like to have them overlap just a little bit. So this is how I line mine up. My first pocket is going to be just below the top stitching lines for my bottom zipper pocket here. So I push it down just a little low like that. And then my second pocket is going to overlap, and I'm only going to have the second pocket just barely go over the bottom edge over here on the sides. You don't have to have it go down. You can have it just meet it. I like it to overlap just a bit. And then my third one is going to overlap that last pocket just a bit. And the third one should line up perfectly with this bottom edge here. That's the goal here. That's why we practice this first. And just doing that dry run, you don't have to mark anything. You don't have to measure anything. You just have to get your eyeballs on it so that you can see this is how I want it to look. So there we go. So I'm just gonna lift these up. And then for this one here, I'm gonna take that first pocket, lay it wrong side up. I'm gonna add some double-sided tape to the very bottom edge, just along that edge. And remove the paper. And then I'm just gonna tape this in place. There we go, make sure it's straight. And now I'm gonna top stitch right along this bottom edge here at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. I do back stitch at the beginning and the end. Alrighty, doesn't that dark blue look so nice with these flowers? I think it looks good. Okay, so now we're gonna grab the middle pocket, which just looks exactly like the top pocket, and on the bottom straight edge, let's add our tape. And then, like I said, I'm going to line this up so it just barely overlaps. I mean, by about 1/8 of an inch. I'm just gonna line up so the top stitching on this middle pocket is lining up with the raw edge on this other pocket here. There we go, both sides. There we go, and then push down. Perfect. Now we're gonna top stitch along this bottom edge at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. There we go. Now we're gonna take the bottom one and let's just make sure it is exactly the way we want it. Yep, that looks great. Okay, and now we're not gonna stitch the sides or anything of this bottom one down because we'll do that in the end. But what I like to do to help everything stay together is I'm gonna grab a little piece of double-sided tape about 1 inch long. Start with one of them. Okay, I'm gonna go to the side over here and I'm gonna lift these up and I'm just gonna add some tape right along the edge where these little flaps go down. And then I'll press down my flaps onto that tape. There we go. I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side, another little 1 inch piece of tape. And then lift up these flaps, place the tape where they go, and it's longer than the flaps space take up. That's supposed to be like that. Press down top flap, press down the bottom flap. There we go. Because these little bits will move around when we're sewing it all together in the end. So that little bit of tape helps. And then I'm gonna put my bottom panel down, and there should be still just a little bit of stickiness left on the bottom there to help us tape this piece in place as well. And then I'm also going to grab some clips and clip along the bottom corners in the bottom edge. This is one of those patterns where it's very easy, but it's all very precise and detail oriented, which I know can be kind of challenging, but if you go slow and you just triple check, you're gonna be really surprised with how this turns out. You're gonna love it. All right, now that we have this clipped, what we wanna do, close the zipper, is we wanna stitch right down the middle here. So for that, I am going to grab my chalk marker and my ruler. And my goal here is just to get a straight vertical line going right down the middle. So these are like little, angles here. We want the line to go right in that nook in the center. There's my line. So now I'm just gonna top stitch. I'm gonna start at the top stitching that's right below my zipper. So I'm not gonna sew over my zipper teeth or anything. Just start at the top stitching that's right below the zipper. And I'm just gonna top stitch down all the way to the bottom. I am gonna back stitch at the beginning and the end here. Alrighty, so I'm just gonna wipe off that chalk. Looking so good. Okay, the last pocket we have to put on is this little one here, and I'm gonna be honest, I just eyeball it. Where it goes in the center here is perfect. Wherever you decide to put it is perfect. So if you want to be a little precise, you can. Let's see, let's mark the midpoint here. So I'm just gonna fold this in half. Be very careful you don't rip anything. So I'm just gonna pinch this ever so gently. Take an air erasing marker to mark the midpoint right above my zipper. Again, you don't even need to do this, honestly. Eyeballing it works great. But I'm gonna take some double-sided tape and put it on the bottom edge of my little pocket here. And if you print out the pattern, there are placement lines for this. So if you really don't feel comfortable willy-nillying this, print off the pattern and there are placement lines to help you figure out exactly where this goes. But if you like a little nilly with your willy, oh my God, it sounds terrible. There we go, let's put that down. And now we're going to top stitch along the sides and the bottom an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Whichever side you start on or stop on, that's fine. Just make sure you back stitch at the beginning and the end here. We need to go around all 3 edges, leaving the top edge open. How pretty is that? So now if you're using the strap, you're gonna top stitch along the edges of this and you're going to add this per the pattern. I'm not using the strap, but again, you do have it if you'd like to use it. And now what we wanna do is put it all together. So I'm going to take my lining and lay it wrong side up like this. It's a little hard to lay the exterior wrong side up because of our little flip lock here. So I'm gonna lay my exterior right side up on top of the lining and we're gonna match up all the edges. And if you're doing the monthly kit, they should all line up perfectly because they've all been cut for you. And this never happens for me because I cut everything by hand normally, which means nothing is the same size. So I'm just gonna go around and gently clip these together, wrong sides together. Okay, so once you have it all clipped, just make sure it's nice and flat, not too bubbly. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna top stitch along the entire edge of this with the exterior right side up at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. If you find this material to be a little sticky, which I specifically picked this material instead of some other ones because I felt like it was not sticky on my machine, but if you find that your presser foot is sticking a little bit, which in turn is making this move while you're trying to sew it, don't get frustrated, just stop what you're doing. Grab some tape, just some regular Scotch tape, and put it on the bottom of your presser foot and just cut out a little hole so your needle can go through it, and then continue nice and slow. A walking foot is also really, really helpful, or if you have enough control, a zipper foot is going to be really helpful here because the zipper foot's going to take up less space. Less of the foot is going to touch this material, so less of it can stick. The one thing you have to pay attention to here as well is that since we're only looking at the top, if these little bits of your card slots start to move, you're not going to know. So that's where the tape comes in handy, but also just keep in mind as you go down these corners here, stop and look and make sure that, you know, these edges aren't getting folded over and then you're stitching it down folded over, okay? Just go slow, but you got this. Okay, moment of truth. Let's flip it over. Oh yeah, that looks good. These are all nice and caught. Good. Everything looks lined up. If you cut this out by hand, if you didn't have the laser cut ones and you cut this out by hand, you might notice that you have some areas that are a little wonky. Just grab your scissors, shave it down, get it all to look nice and neat. Now you see when we fold this up, fold this down, how cute is that, right? Oh yeah, that looks so good. I love this wallet. Okay, so the last thing we have to do is install the female end of our little snap lock. I've never used one of these before. I think this is adorable. Okay, so once again, you're gonna wanna find the midpoint on the top edge here of your wallet. Now the pattern suggests we mark 3/4 of an inch down from that top midpoint mark. And so what I like to do is I mark that dot, and when we install this, we're gonna install it just below that dot. But just to make sure, I'm gonna close this up, push this down, and just make sure, okay, I'm feeling with my finger, here's where the lock is, and about here, just, since it's closed now, just above is where this is gonna go. So that works, okay? Just make sure you try it out, because if you mismeasured or you did something wrong and then you install this way up here and you're like, it's never gonna fit, catch it now, okay? Don't catch it after you've already installed it. So now let's grab our little screwdrivers and unscrew this. This has 2 pieces and then also 2 screws. So don't lose anything. I like to put my little screws in the cover for my screwdriver set. Here we go. Okay, and you're gonna take the washer side. So the washer side is flat. You have one that has a bunch of stuff sticking out. You have a flat side. We want the flat side. Let's flip this around. And we're gonna take our washer and center it with our dot, and it's just below it. So whenever you did a little dry fit just a moment ago, if you're like, you know, I think that's too far down, I think I want it a little bit higher up, think about that now. You can put this wherever you want. Okay, so now grab my marking tool, and you're gonna mark inside the holes for the screws, and then also the main hole for the little flip lock. Let's pull this up. Now what you want to do is take your pen and just carefully draw an oval that encompasses all 3 of those markings, just outside of it. There you go. Doesn't have to be beautiful, doesn't have to be perfect, but it needs to be just enough to encircle all 3 of those things you marked. Now I'm gonna grab my seam ripper and I'm gonna rip, I know, I'm ripping the exterior and the cork lining. I'm ripping all of it. And I'm gonna rip right along the center, carefully. Don't push too hard and then rip the whole thing in half. Oh boy. Carefully, boop, boop, boop. right in the center here. And I'm ripping just enough so that I can get my scissors and I can cut out this oval. So I go like that. And now I'm just going to follow the line all the way around carefully. And I'm just cutting out that oval that I marked. All right, there we go. Now you can grab your female end that has all the stuff in it. It's the pretty side, because that goes on the front like that. And all of the installation hardware should fit in here, just like that. And then the washer is going to go on the lining side. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my screws back in just so I can take a look at how it all fits. I mean, there's only so many things I can change right here, so hopefully it works. All right, so get those in there. Here we go. And then let's close this, and let's close this. Oh my goodness. Look how beautiful that is. Wowza. That's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Okay, so it all fits, it all works. That's great. Now we're gonna add some glue. I normally only add glue inside the holes for the screws. So I put a little dot of glue in there, and then I put the screw back in. But you could also, I know we're getting a little risky here, but you could also very carefully add some glue just to the outside here, just around the hardware that sticks up. So that way it's also glued to the material. So it's not just glue for the screws, it's glued to our actual vinyl too. But you don't want to add too much glue because it'll smoosh out and be a mess. So I'm just going to put a tiny bit of glue on here. And this glue doesn't dry instantaneous. So if it's not exactly right, you do have time to kind of fix it. All right, so now I'm going to take a drop of glue and put it in each of the holes for the screws. And I might put just a tiny bit of glue on the back of this washer too. Very, very, very light amount of glue. All right, push it down. Let's reinsert these screws. Always be super gentle when you're installing these tiny screws. These tiny screws can get stripped pretty easily, meaning you push too hard because they're not quite right, and then you rip off the little groove marks for the screwdriver, and then it doesn't work anymore. All right, so I'm gonna get these nice and tight in there. Now let's flip it over, make sure it's straight. You still have time, and that's where the glue comes in handy because it might be not perfectly straight, and then as you straighten it out and then the glue dries, it'll, you know, stay straight. Okay, almost done. The last thing we have to do is close up some of this for the pocket. So as you can see, I can put my hand in here and I can have it come out over here, which if that's what you want, that's great. But for me personally, I like the idea of this pocket here being for bills and this pocket here being for change, and it's separate. So what I'm gonna do is actually just stitch a line right above my zipper through the interior and the exterior to close it off. So here's how I do that. I ideally want to just stitch right over this top stitching line that's on the top of my zipper opening. So the top stitching line I have right here, I pretty much just want to stitch right over that. However, I want the top thread to be on this side, which means I'm going to stitch from the exterior side and hope that I catch. You see what I'm saying? It's a little tricky. I'll show you what I do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a ruler, and I'm lining up the ruler right along my top stitching line right here, just so I know where it is. And then on the other side, on the right side, I'm marking right on the edge where my ruler is, because where I'm marking should be underneath where the top stitching is. I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. See, I'm just lining it up with that top stitching line, flip it over, and mark. There we go. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a ruler to mark a line between these two side marks here. And again, hopefully, on the other side where that line is, it's the top stitching line. Okay, there's my marked line. When you do this, I do suggest you use a zipper foot because we are sewing right next to the zipper tape, and make sure you move the zipper pull as you're going. You are still sewing right next to a zipper. So I'm going to start over here. I'm going to just top stitch right along this line. I'm going to pay attention to where my zipper pull is because I don't want to accidentally sew over that. And I'll move it out of the way as I go. And I do back stitch at the beginning and the end. Once again, I'm going to grab a wet rag to just remove the marking pen. And then let's flip this over. Haha, you can't even see it. That's fantastic. So now let's zip it up, close it up, lock it up. There we go. How stinking cute is that? We open it up. I can put my bills here. It's closed off, so I don't have to worry about it going into this pocket. This pocket is all nice and closed off as well. We can put change in there. Oh, it's so cute. So, so cute. I hope you guys love this. So the Lucky $2 wallet is a pattern we have done on the channel before, so I'm going to make sure I link that video down below as well as up here if you'd like to check out the first one. I am going to walk you through it again, and I will give you just all of the same information. So for this, you're going to have an outside main, which is the outside of the wallet, and an inside main. Now, the inside main you actually don't see a ton of, which is why I made them the same color, because you'll see when it comes together, it looks really cool. You're also going to have a piece of binding that goes over the top of this pocket, which will help serve as a bigger pocket to hold dollar bills, currency, things like that. There is a small zip pocket over here, so you have the zip pocket cut, which is going to be like this, and then a small zipper. And then we have 3 card slot pockets. 2 of them are cut out with the pattern piece. The rest of this is all just rectangles. So if you are making this using the pattern, the only pattern piece you need is for these little guys right here. Everything else is just rectangles. But if you have the August OklaRoots project box, then all of this is already pre-cut for you and ready to go. You just have to sew it together. Here's all the other stuff for this project. On the bobbin thread, I have a Gutermann thread, and then the top thread, I have a Tex 35 weight thread. Remember, you will be seeing all of this thread. You will see the bobbin thread, and you will see the top thread. This is all top stitching here. So make sure it's thread that looks good with the material you're using. The needle I'm using is a Microtex 8012. Double-sided tape is going to be very, very helpful. Just make sure it's the wash-away double-sided tape. I might also be using some washi tape. I've been using this in everything lately, so I just want to make sure you knew about it. Marking tools are very helpful. Chalk, air erasing, or vinyl, depending on what you're doing. A 1" by 6" ruler always. A lighter is going to help clean up any little threads that need to, be tucked in the very end. A stiletto is going to make sewing much easier. And then a good pair of scissors. Okay, to get started, we're going to make the zipper pocket. And you guys always hate doing this one because we have to separate the zipper. And I know it's fine, though. You're going to be fine. So you're going to take your cute little zipper here. You're going to take that pull right off. And you're going to separate. I know. So now I'm going to take my double-sided tape and I'm going to add it to the short edges of my zipper pocket rectangle here. And then what we want to do is flip our little zipper teeth around because we're going to just tape this right side up onto the right side of the zipper. We're not folding and top stitching, nothing like that. We're just top stitching this right on top of the zipper. So remove the paper from one edge, take some zipper teeth. So remember you separated these, I know it hurt. You take your zipper teeth and lay them right side up, and then just center this along there. There you go. And then flip it around and remove the paper from the other short side. Take the other zipper teeth, lay it right side up, and just put this over that as well. The raw edge of your cork should come about 1/8 inch away from the teeth. It's eyeballing. Just don't have the raw edge of your cork touching these plastic zipper teeth, okay? That's all. And now let's top stitch along both of these edges at 1/8 inch seam allowance. So once you have these top stitched in place, trim down the zipper tape so it's the same width as the cork or whatever material you're using. There we go. Just be careful here, and you can, and I did back stitch at the beginning and the end of this top stitching, so that's going to help keep everything together a little bit better. Okay, now we have to add the zipper pull back on, which I know some of you guys don't like doing it like this, but here's the thing. Practice makes perfect. You gotta be comfortable putting zippers on zipper tape, okay? You gotta. You're a bag maker. You gotta be comfortable doing this, and the only way you're gonna get comfortable doing this is if you do it more. So we're gonna do it today. We're gonna do it twice. So first thing I like to do is fold my material in half like this and bring my zipper teeth together, because what I want to see is whenever they're folded in half and all lined up at the top here, which coil is on top. So when I do this, I kind of smush my teeth together, and the right coil here is on the top. It wants to naturally zipper like that with the right on the top. So I'm going to grab my zipper pull, and I'm going to insert it on to the right side first, and then I'm going to pull up the left side and put it in there. And I'm going to look from the top here, and I'm just making sure that the right coil is on top, and there's only one right coil at the very beginning, not like 3 right coils, and then because then it's gonna be like this, right? Which is not what we want. Okay, so you're gonna get it started. I push it down like this, pinch the sides over here on the left, and then pull. There we go, and the coil looks great. And I'm just gonna keep on pulling it right off because I want it to be fully wrapped. I don't want an open end over here. I want it completely fully wrapped. Now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna build this pocket, and the zipper's gonna be a little offset to the right, and it's gonna go like this. And you need to think about, how do you want your zipper to close? Do you want it to close up, or do you want it to close down? I personally want it to close up. So when I'm reinstalling my zipper pull here, I'm gonna install it from the bottom, so as it goes up, it's closing. So I'm gonna rotate this, open up the bottom, paying attention which coil is already on top on this one too. The right coil is on top. So I'm just going to insert the right side first into my zipper, and then the left side. And then I'm gonna look from the top, make sure the right coil is on top. There we go. Push it down a bit, hold it, and pull it halfway up now, okay? Just like that. There we go. So now, when it's opening and closing, it's going to close going up, and everything is lined up. There we go. So now let's take our ruler, and we want this space over here on the right to be 3/4 of an inch. So all I do is just place my ruler over here and fold it down, and somehow that was like the perfect guess, because I'm just folding it, like pressing it with my fingers on the back here to get a nice crisp fold, and making sure that that fold is lining up at the 3/4 of an inch mark. The bottom of my ruler is lined up with my zipper. There we go. Let me grab my clips and clip along this edge. There we go. Okay, I'm not so worried about the left side yet. I just want this right side to be what the pattern suggests. So now I'm going to top stitch along this fold over here with the clips at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, and I do back stitch at the beginning and the end. Before I move on, what you might want to do is burn down the edge of your zipper tape. So move the cork out of the way. I'm just looking at the edge of my zipper tape right here. Grab a lighter and just melt down the edge of that zipper tape. The zipper tape is a nylon material. It's made of plastic threads pretty much. They can still unravel, but if you melt them, they won't. They seal. It's so cool. There we go. So now grab your inside main panel and then your zipper pocket panel, and just press this down. Give it a really good finger press. If you have one of these stilettos, press it with the other end here. There we go. And then grab your scissors, slide them in, and cut right along that fold. There we go. So now we're going to take our zipper panel and we're going to lay it right side up with the zipper closing going up on the left side of our interior panel. And then just grab some clips to clip this in place. And now let's top stitch along all 3 edges of this at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. I do suggest back stitching at the beginning and the end. You're going to leave this little folded over edge open. Okay, once you have that sewn on, flip it over, and if you have any little bits overhanging like I do, just go ahead and trim those down. Okay, so the zipper pocket is complete. Now we're going to attach our 3 card slot pockets, and I like to just kind of give it a look-see first. So first I'm going to have the cork, and then I'm going to have the faux leather, and then I'm going to have the cork. Back, forth, like that. So you want to measure 3/4 of an inch to the left from the right side here, and I'm just going to make a little tick mark on the top and the bottom, 3/4 of an inch in. So the first pocket's going to be a cork pocket, and I'm just going to line that up. And that's how that's going to go. And I like to just give it a test run. So I'm just going to lay it down like this. The pattern has these end pieces here on the sides meet one another but not overlap to reduce bulk. You can do that. I like to have them overlap by about an 1/8 of an inch. So just a little bit. I'll have each one of these overlap the edges by about 1/8 of an inch. And that's how it's gonna look on the inside. Isn't that cute? So let's do this first pocket. Lay it wrong side up, grab some double-sided tape, and add a piece of double-sided tape, just a tiny piece, to the very bottom straight edge of this pocket. You know what? I just realized I forgot to top stitch my pockets. Okay, before we do that, let's top stitch our pockets. So the 2 cutout pockets and the rectangle pocket, we're gonna top stitch along the top edge, so the longest edge for these 2, and then either of the long edges for the rectangle. Just top stitch along all those edges at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. I do back stitch at the beginning and the end of those top stitchings. Okay, once you have those top stitched, now grab your first pocket and remove the tape from the bottom edge and line up the top edge with those 3/4 inch marks. There we go. Make sure it's nice and straight, not crooked or anything. And now let's top stitch along the bottom edge at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. I do back stitch at the beginning and the end. And now grab your second pocket and add your double-sided tape to the bottom edge of your second pocket. And then I like to have this overhang the bottom little bits here by 1/8 of an inch. So I'm pretty much just lining up the top stitching thread with the raw bottom edge on the corners here. But if you'd rather have them just meet right underneath and not overlap, that's good too. Overlapping will have a little bit more bulk. So if you want to keep it really skinny and thin, just have them slide right underneath and meet there. Okay, so now I'm going to top stitch along this bottom edge at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. And now before we add the final pocket, I'm actually going to put my bag tag on that one. I like my bag tag to be on this little pocket right here. I think it's a perfect space, and it's easy to get it pretty straight. So I'm just going to cut off a piece of double-sided tape and put it on the back of my bag tag. Pull it off. And I'm just eyeballing this, but I'm going to center it right on my little piece here. Is that centered? That's pretty centered. And now I'm going to top stitch around all 4 edges of my bag tag at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. So now take your third pocket, and I'm going to use some double-sided tape on the bottom of this just because it is easier. So I'm going to add double-sided tape to the bottom long edge, remove that paper. And then, just like I did with the middle pocket, I'm going to have this overlap the top pocket on these short edges here by just 1/8 of an inch. But you could also just slide it up to meet like that, or overlap just a tiny bit. And then push down with my tape. Here we go. Now I'm going to add just a couple clips to the sides because these are not taped down. All right. Now we're going to go to the sewing machine and we're going to top stitch along the side and the bottom of this main pocket and all the way up. So we're top stitching all the sides down and the bottom edge. Do this at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance and back stitch at the beginning and the end. Now that the pockets are all done, we're going to add a piece of binding along the top edge here to just cover up all these raw bits and give it a nice smooth finish. I prefer the binding to be the same length as the main panel here. In the pattern, the binding is actually going to be a little bit shorter, so that way the binding doesn't go in the seam when we fold over the exterior piece. It helps reduce bulk. If you want to do that, go ahead and trim this down. If you got the kit for this month, then the binding is cut longer like I like it, but you can trim it down. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a piece of my double-sided tape and lay it on the back side, so on the wrong side of the binding along one edge. There we go. And then I'll remove that paper. And then I'm going to take my unit with all the pockets. And again, this is the top because the zipper goes up like that. And I'm just going to lay this on top, just on the tape. So you might even find it helpful to mark a midpoint line on your binding just so you know where that is. And then I'm going to fold over the binding and add a clip to hold it in place. So you might have to kind of pull the binding up a little bit, move it around. Just want to make sure it's wrapped on the front and the back. I know it can get a little bulky. Okay, so once you have it clipped on, just check the front and the back and make sure it's about the same spot. You don't want the back of the binding to be up a lot higher than the front of the binding because then when we sew it down, you're not going to catch the back of it. But you should have enough here because what we're going to do now is we're going to top stitch along this edge at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. So we're going 1/8 of an inch in from the folded edge, okay? It's better that your seam allowance be more towards the center of this binding rather than closer to the raw edges, because the closer it is to the raw edge, the more likely it is you're not going to catch the back. So just go nice and slow, and as you're at the machine, I would pick it up and just check the needle is going through everything that it needs to go through. All right, that looks great. If you feel like this edge right here is a little too floppy and you want to do a second row of top stitching a little bit closer to the raw edge, that's perfectly fine. As long as you know you've caught the back already, it doesn't matter if you catch the back on the second row. You can do another row here to kind of clean it up if you'd like. All right, the last bit is attaching the main panel, and pretty much what you do is you put this inside of here, you tuck it around, and then you're done. Now, I have a little bit of a different way to do the corners for this. In the pattern, you're going to pretty much cut off the corner and then you fold these to meet. I don't like that little gap on the edge, and I'm not the best sewer that can avoid that. So I have kind of a weird way to do this, but give it a try. It does require a little bit of measuring, a little bit of extra prep time, but I feel like it makes sewing it a lot easier. So starting at the bottom left corner, make sure if you have a directional print, you think about that now because we're working on the back side of the exterior. So starting on the bottom left corner, measure to the right on the bottom edge 3/8 of an inch. And then I just mark a vertical line like that, okay? And then over here on the left edge, measure up 3/4 of an inch. There we go. And just make a mark on the corner there. Okay, so we have 3/4 of an inch over here. We have a line over here that's 3/8 of an inch going straight up. Make another mark on the bottom edge here that's 3/4 of an inch over. There we go. Okay, and what we want to do is take our ruler and connect the 3/4 of an inch mark on the left and on the bottom. Okay, so I'm connecting those two, but I'm going to start drawing on the left-hand side here until I get to that vertical line. See? So I'm making like the side of a house shape. I'm not going all the way down to that other 3/4 of an inch mark. I'm just making this little side of a house shape like that. So now I'm going to do that on the bottom right. I'm going to walk you through it. I know it's more time, but let me just walk you through it. So I'm going to measure 3/8 of an inch to the left this time on the bottom edge. So 3/8 of an inch over, vertical line. And then I'm going to measure 3/4 of an inch up from the bottom and make a little tick on the right side. And then 3/4 of an inch on the bottom edge, make a little tick. And then, taking my ruler, I'm going to connect the 3/4 of an inch mark on the right and the bottom. And I'm going to draw a line, but my line only goes from the right side to that vertical line I already marked. See? Another little half of a house. So I'm going to flip this over and I'm going to do the exact same thing for the other side. All right, once I have all my little half house shapes here, I'm going to cut those out. So I'm going to cut along the vertical line, and then I'm going to cut along the diagonal line. And if you try this out, let me know what you think. I mean, maybe you find cutting it just a diagonal all the way and then having a meet works easiest. It is going to be quick and easy, but I feel like this it hides the raw edges a little bit better. Okay, so if you have a directional, make sure the top is up top and we're looking at the wrong side. And let's just measure in 1/2 of an inch from the sides and the bottom. So the left, right, and bottom. Measure 1/2 of an inch. And now let's take our pockets and snug it in here. It should line up with those 1/2 inch marks. There we go. Looking good. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start with this bottom edge here, and I'm just gonna fold it up and wrap it around the bottom of my pocket panel. And I'm gonna use clips to hold it in place. Okay, so the bottom edge is there, so now I'm going to go to the right edge over here, and I'm going to wrap the right edge around. And you can see I do wrap it around the binding because my binding does extend all the way. And then as I go down to the bottom here, I'll remove this clip, and so I have a little angle on my cut, and I pull that up, and it gives me a nice angled look here on the corner, but I don't have like the two pieces pulling apart from one another. It is still overlapping the straight edge. And this does require quite a bit of stopping, finagling, going back. Just get it as straight as you can. So I'm gonna do the same thing on the left side. I'm gonna just fold this up and wrap it around. Some clips. And then I'm gonna have it fold over that straight bit on the bottom to give it a nice angled look. There we go. So cute. Isn't this cute? I love it. So for the top edge here, to make it a little bit easier, especially if you're doing my method, grab an air erasing marker or a chalk marker and measure down from this top straight edge here, 3/4 of an inch, and just draw a line. It's a very light line, but I can see it. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna fold down this top straight edge to meet that 3/4 of an inch line, and I'm gonna add clips. You might find it easier to use double-sided tape here. Instead of just clips, I would use double-sided tape and the clips. There we go. So the straight edge is all the way down, and now we still have this angled edge, and the angled edge, just like we did on the bottom, is going to wrap over the straight edge to give it a nice look. There we go. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to sew along this edge at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance from the raw inner edge. So using the raw inner edge as your guide, 1/8 of an inch in. If you need to change your bobbin color, I'll be sewing this with the pockets right side up, which means I can't see the exterior so much. So if you want to change your bobbin color so that the bobbin thread is the same color as the exterior, that's a great option. Otherwise, just know you're not going to have a whole lot of control of how it looks on the front. All right, that actually looks really good. The top stitching with me always is a little iffy. This one actually turned out really, really nice. I will tell you, I went very, very slow. Here's the spot where I started and stopped my stitching, and I cut down the threads. I did back stitch, but I'm gonna burn that down a little bit too. Look how cute this is. And this is such a handy wallet, especially when you're traveling and things. It holds just enough. It's nice and slim, so cute. I have seen people add like little magnetic snaps here. You could do a little snap here. There's not a ton of room for it, but you could do maybe like a cam snap would be cute. There's a lot of fun stuff you could do with this. This is adorable. I hope you guys love making this. So the final pattern is the Fob Keeper, and if you need something super fast to make, you're gonna love this. I will say this probably will take you longer to cut out than it will to make. So this is the pattern piece. If you have the kit, this is already cut out for you. You'll have the cork, you'll have the zipper, you'll have the clasp that goes on top. The hardware color of this will vary from kit to kit, but this is so cute and so handy. Okay, so for this, you really just need some sort of raw edge material, a small zipper, and key fob hardware. You could not use key fob hardware. You could also use a swivel hook. You could use keychain. You could use a lot of different things. For this, we're going to be using the key fob, but if you don't have the tools necessary to press this key fob, then definitely use a keychain or use a swivel hook. So we're just going to dive right into this because really this is just the same material we've been using before. And what we want to do first is add our double-sided tape to the long edges of our zipper tape. And then always think about which way the zipper's closing. When the zipper's closing, I want it to go up towards the top of my key fob. So I'm going to take one piece of paper off the zipper tape, and then I'm going to take the open prong side here and just lay that over it, centering the zipper coils in that opening. There we go. I'm going to take the paper off the bottom edge, do the same thing. Zip it all the way up. There we go. So just get this arranged the way you want it. Perfect. How cute. It already is so cute. So now make sure your zipper tape, I like to make sure it's extending a decent amount up here. So I don't want it too close to the edge over here, and I can see it's already separating. So now I'm going to top stitch around all 4 edges of my zipper tape, even over this open edge over here. I'm just going to top stitch all the way around at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance and back stitch over the 2 zipper coils here just to make sure they stay in place. Once you have that done, trim down your zipper tape so that it's the same height as this. And then if you have any zipper tape up here you want to trim down, go ahead and do that. We don't want those edges poking out, so I'm just going to kind of angle it off like that. There we go. And then, once I have that angled off, I'm gonna grab my handy dandy lighter and I'm going to burn down the edge of my zipper tape to avoid any sort of fraying. You know, no matter what we're making, whether it's a wallet or a bag or a key fob, you know, we want to make sure it lasts. So take the extra time to melt that down. Do the bottom here too. Boop, boop, boop. So if you were going to use a hook or even like a keychain, something that you wanted to slide on here, now's a good time to do it. So you would slide this on like this, flip it around, and then continue the rest of the pattern with this already installed. Since we're doing a key fob, which is something we're just going to press down to the top of this in the end, we don't have to do that. But remember, you have a lot of options here. Okay, so we're going to fold this in half. So line up the top angled edges. And we're just folding in half, wrong sides together, and clip those together. And then clip along the side all the way down to the bottom. Okay, so once you have the sides clipped down, we're not going to fold up the bottom just yet. Just make sure the sides are completely straight and lined up. And now we're going to top stitch just along the sides, the straight bits. So not this angle up here. We're not going to top stitch on that. Leave that open. We're going to top stitch along just the sides at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, back stitch at the beginning and the end on both sides. All right, once you have the sides done, just take this bottom edge here and fold it up to wrap it around the bottom of that zipper. How stinking cute, right? And now we're going to top stitch along the angled 3 edges here at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance just to hold this down, back stitch at the beginning and the end. Okay. Next step I want to take is burning off any of my little tiny tails I have all over here. Just burn them down, melt them, make it look nice. This is a fantastic gift idea, especially if you're giving it with a bundle of something else, like if it's a teacher gift and you're giving them gift cards and a coffee mug and things like this. This is another just perfect little thing to put in there. If you have vinyl with like puppies or birds or characters, whatever their favorite things are, use that vinyl. It's just a scrap of it. Man, oh man, how cute is that? Okay, so now we're going to attach the key fob hardware. And I'll be honest, I will be using my rivet press for this because I have it and because it's easiest. However, there's a lot of different tools you could use for key fob hardware. And again, you could just bypass it altogether and just use keychain hardware instead for this. So we actually have gone over a tutorial on the channel going over just key fobs and the best way to get these things to stick and not rip out easily, especially for wristlets. So if you want to see that video, I'll have it linked down below. But to install key fobs, I like to use my Cam Snaps rivet press. And then here is the key fob hardware that goes with it, the die set. It's just 2 sheets. There's also hand tools you can use, but I find this to be a lot more reliable. So I'm gonna insert my dies. And when you look at key fobs, you'll see if you look on the inside, one side has these little prongs and the other side is smooth. And what happens is these prongs do a great job when we smush it at digging into the fabric and catching it. However, if you have really thick material, it will most likely only dig into one side of it. It won't dig into all of it, which means eventually it comes out, which is why we use E6000 glue as well. So I take the E6000 glue and I just add it to the smooth side of the key fob. So just on the edge that's smooth. I don't add it to the side with the prongs. You could add it to both sides if you like. And then I'm just going to insert, let's move the zipper down. I'm going to insert the top here into my key fob hardware. Key fob hardware, oh, this is pretty, okay, normally I can pinch it, but I can't. So I'm going to just make sure it's centered in there. And then I'm going to put it onto my rivet press and I'll gently just push it down. And you can see as you do this, it's just smushing down the metal bars. I like to push it most of the way down like that. And if it gets a little crooked sometimes, you can still fix it. So it's not all the way smushed yet. I still have lots of space here, but it's mostly closed, so I have more control over making sure it's straight. And now I'm gonna smush it all the way down. And there we go, easy peasy. And you can see, here's one I already made. I have a really long cord in here, but you can put a pretty long one in there. And it's nice because when you're out and about, if you need to just charge your phone, here you go, easy peasy. You can put some cash in here, you can put a chapstick in here, just little things you need. Again, teachers, guys. I just think this is perfect for teachers when they have to take the kids out to the playground. They just need something small, something basic. They all have, I mean, every teacher has a ton of keys, right? They have all the keys for the school. So this can just go on there. I love it. I hope you guys love it too. All right, what do you guys think? These are fun, right? And I'm just telling you, having it all pre-cut, it is like the fastest projects ever. However, you should definitely use your own material in these projects as well. And that's one thing, whenever I was picking out all the different material colors, I was trying to make sure I picked out stuff that would look good with everything else too. Because if you're like, you know what, I love this blue, but I think I want to do something different for the inside, like everything works with a lot of other things. So I wanted to show you, I've actually made a lot of these. So this was the first time I was making the penny wallet, and I've made 4 other ones on top of the one in the tutorial. And I just wanted to run through them because you can see you can have some serious fun with your vinyl here. So here's like a little turn lock, open that up, and then I just use a bunch of scraps, all kinds of different colors, whatever I could find. How cute is that? This one I did not include the zipper on the bottom. You can definitely skip the zipper if you'd like. I would suggest still closing off the bottom edge here though, just so you have 2 separate pockets. I think that one turned out, look at this one, look at this one. Look at how stinking fun that is. And so we open this one up, and you can see this one I used a lot more of like cork. Oh, and this one I used some sparkly heat transfer vinyl on the back side of the main exterior, so that way you have like that, it's like a lining. It's fun. And then here's a more neutral one I did. How sweet is that? I kind of messed this one up, which is why there's a snap here, but not here. And then you can see I was playing around with the idea of magnetic snaps. You can also use magnetic snaps. So this is just like the one we made in the tutorial, but this one has a flip lock and this one has a magnetic snap. You could also, included in the box is the strap. So if you did not want to use hardware at all, you could use the strap, and that goes on just like this. I mean, come on, all of this is such a winning combo. And then I made multiple of these as well. I wanted to try one with the cork on the outside. I mean, once you start working on these, you can't stop. It's so much fun. So thank you so much to Sally Tomato for partnering up with me and doing this monthly project box. It is so much fun. We're really going all over the place with it. I mean, as you saw in month 1, we did a very large bag with no hardware, which was very fun. This month, it's all about small, quick things that you can easily use or you can gift. Next month, it's a surprise. I'm just saying we might not be able to use the box next month, but it's one. It's a good one. You guys are going to love it. So thank you so much for sewing with me today. I hope you're having a great day. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your week. Get out there and make something. Bye, guys.